Hello and welcome to Setting the Stage. I'm Isaac Shaker, and this is episode 81, Biopunk 2287 RPG, Seiya and Synesthesia Synthetica. This is a Biopunk game that Seiya made that's still in like an alpha testing stage, but it's available on Discord and on itch and on DriveThruRPG. So after listening to the episode, go check it out there. And let's get those ads out of the way for non-Patreon listeners, and then we can start talking with Seiya about the game and the setting. I'm here today with Seiya, and he's got a cool like biopunk game called Synesthesia Synthetica. So how you doing, Seiya?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me on, yeah.
Yeah, glad to have you. So you're a friend with Calico, as a previous guest, online friend. I'm assuming not in-person friend, because you're not in the same country. But yeah, it's cool to meet people through networking. Awesome. Well, since you've listened to his episode, you're sort of familiar with the format where we start off by asking who you are outside of RPGs. So who is Seiya outside of RPGs?
Outside of RPGs, I'm a video games designer,
Cool.
or like freelance work person. I make 3D models and stuff for a living. And do commissions and stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't know, like for hobbies and stuff, video games, breathing.
Video games.
Yeah.
All right. Breathing, surviving.
I love my like hobbies and stuff kind of tend to be like an Ouroboros of just like, if I like one thing, then it's going to be connected very easily to other things. So TTRPGs were like a very easy jump, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get that. That's kind of the same thing for me. I've got this whole podcast as another hobby for myself.
Yeah,
on top
absolutely.
of playing RPGs. Well, yeah, how'd you get started playing? Did you move from video games into tabletop RPGs?
Yeah, I've made a couple like video games. And when I like discovered TTRPGs originally, it was this massive world opened up because you don't have to go through the whole hullabaloo of programming and voice acting and 3D modeling and all the other stuff like that.
Right.
To come up with something cool. And it's much easier. That does sound a little bit conceited, but yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I've had conversations with people online about this before, that like it'd be great to turn a game that like a TTRPG idea that you have into a video game, but there's so much more work that's required for that. Like a person can publish a TTRPG. A person cannot publish a game like Mass Effect on their own. It's just too much.
Yeah. But the fact that I do have video game skills has, I think, made my TTRPGs pop a little bit more. So I think it is working a little bit in the other direction of like making my TTRPGs a little bit more interesting, I think. Yeah. Like all of my like art in my TTRPGs are fully 3D. And a lot of people have commented on that as being like the kind of weird drawer, I guess, because not very many people use 3D art in TTRPGs.
Oh, okay. This is your own art that you did for this?
Oh yeah. I make everything myself. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Is this machinima or something that you're doing in Blender or something?
Yeah, it's all made from. Oh no, actually, I shouldn't say that. Most everything is made from scratch in Blender. All of the humanoid models were made using the Unreal Engine MetaHuman creator, you know, because they can make some like really fantastic quality photorealistic models.
Okay. Yeah, so a starting point, and then you move from there.
Yeah, I added that afterwards. Once I
of course.
Yeah.
No, you just do the standard render and then throw it in the book. It's good to go.
I wish I could, but unfortunately, like whatever they've got going on there, it's like some really weird technology, really proprietary. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Like it's. I mean, there's so many like I feel like the rise of AI art within the TTRPG space is sort of a response to people not having the skills to make their own art. And it's great to be able to do it without having some sort of crutch like that.
I don't know if I'm just not as entrenched, but I've only seen like maybe 2 or 3 people who've like really gone hardcore and using like AI art for their TTRPGs. I mean, I like hate that stuff personally. It does really turn me off, but yeah, I don't think I've been exposed too much to it. I think there's a lot of vitriol against it in the TTRPG.
Yeah, I mean, there was exactly. I feel like there was some push initially, like, oh, this is cool, and then once the more like ethical side of it was revealed, there was a strong pushback against it, and
yeah,
also because a lot of it looks like it's drawn by like sort of the same boring person. It's like it ends up feeling boring after a while. You know, like you look at the same art over and over again, and you sort of gloss over it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think TTRPG people are a little bit more opinionated about that stuff than the average person.
Well,
yeah.
I personally feel like it's not necessarily like people that are within the TTRPG community as a whole, but when you're designing a product, your initial audience isn't that whole like space of people. It's more like the specific group of first adopters who are often people that are very plugged into the industry and have friends within the TTRP industry, and those friends could be artists that draw things for them.
Oh,
so
yeah, true. If
they're
you're
friends
connected to
into
artists, it's going to be harder. Yeah.
Yeah, they're friends into being more personally threatened by that type of culture and industry change. So they're much more against it.
Absolutely.
So I feel like the public as a whole probably doesn't care that much about AI art. They'll go with whatever the sort of cheaper option is. But with the first consumers being those more plugged in people, you don't get pushed out to that broader audience because they're going to rely on those first consumers as like a sort of vetting system for new things.
That's an interesting way of seeing it. Yeah, it's kind of like the web of people, kind of affect what you think about it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's sort of a layered audience. I learned it's I thought about it from like the way that something goes viral on the internet. Like a lot of people scroll through Reddit, like on the front page where it's already stuff that's been uploaded to the top. But there is a group of people that scroll through like particular subreddits on like newest post. And they're the ones that will find something and be like, oh, this is interesting. I'll upload it and I'll comment on it. And then the algorithm makes it go higher up so that then the next wave of people looks at it. And that's kind of the effect I'm talking about in a broader sense. It's not necessarily like Reddit is the only way, but that type of approach to content applies to other places where you post things as well, like DriveThruRPG and itch.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. The first person that I did encounter who used AI in their TTRPG, like I did manage to convince them out of that, luckily. So I do think I agree with you. It's like, yeah, they were very defensive about it in the first place, and then I eventually managed to like cajole them into using Creative Commons stuff for their world.
Yeah, I think it's reached the point where like because there's so much of a backlash against it, like using it as a death sentence for a project, regardless of your personal opinion on it, you shouldn't do it just for that reason.
I do think it does have a little bit of a like political stink to it. Yeah, totally.
Right. So you moved over from video games to tabletop RPGs, and which ones have you played?
Video games or TTRPGs?
TTRPGs. Interested in video games as well, but not why we're
here. I'm quite sparse on the amount of TTRPGs I've played because the original, like when I got into originally, I was drawn in the same way everybody is by playing D&D, and I eventually, because I'm a creative person, I really like making stuff. When I was like making my character, I was like, this is not enough, I want to do more. And so I eventually just started making my own like homebrew games and stuff like that and running that for people. And then eventually, after like a couple years of that, I wanted to try something like more sci-fi. And so I ended up playing the original, I think it was 2000 or 2001 cyberpunk game.
Okay.
Or, Cyberpunk 2020 was the number, yes. And then my friends and I just like absolutely despised the like 80s coded, like really retro aesthetic of that game. And so we tried to make our own essentially. And that's how SNS was born. It was originally a like hacky version of like a cyberpunk game. And then over the years of me messing with it, it eventually evolved into becoming a like fully biopunk, weird, surreal experience that is now. Yeah.
Right. So biopunk. Punk usually means sort of like that weird like technology is suffused with this kind of aesthetic feel to it.
I tend to take the words very literally. So punk means like you're going up against authority in some way. You're like anti-authority, like fight the power type deal, right?
Okay. Yeah. That tends to be part of it.
I think
sometimes.
It changes. But I think cyberpunk definitely does change that sometimes. But and
I
then
would say like steampunk doesn't necessarily require that. And
absolutely. Yeah.
Solar punk is kind of like a counter response to that. So I wouldn't count that.
I think so. Well, I think they approach it a different way. So steampunk is more of like an attempt at a critique of like Victorian stuff, maybe. So a steampunk story could include things about like people being in poorhouses or like terrible treatment of like whomever would have been treated badly in the Victorian era. And then it's kind of whimsically entrenched in like cogs and steam. And then solar punk, I think, is like a very like super warm eco take on it, where it's less about this kind of fighting the power, but more of like, we don't have to accept the power and we can kind of do our own thing instead, which is like solar green utopia,
Yeah. It's really more of a counter example.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying about like steampunk can have that. I just feel like in most of the examples that I've seen of it, that's not what it's doing with the story, whereas most of the examples of cyberpunk are.
I absolutely agree with you. It changes all over the place. Like, I think once, because it is like a micro niche, right? And adding punk to something doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things.
I feel like it almost just means like this is what the technology is like, and we layer on these sort of like social expectations for what the culture is like as well that aren't always backed up by the actual
for me as
material.
a developer, the like social side of things or like the like punk connotations, that has been like super helpful in terms of like development and stuff. So even if that doesn't end up like being played out at an actual table, I mean, it usually doesn't, but it kind of helps with like the writing and kind of theming of the world, you know, if
for sure,
it's in the background.
Yeah, I feel like you always want to have that representation for people, and because you have your own art, you can even portray that more visually, whereas some other books wouldn't be able to bring it across in a visual way as much.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been definitely trying to bring that in a little bit more, to have more of like a gritty, like fight the power feel to it. It's very tricky though. There's not very many examples of biopunk media, and like the ones that are there are super varied. I think if you have like a steampunk or cyberpunk story, you can kind of immediately visualize what that is going to be. Biopunk is kind of all over the place, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I suppose. I don't know.
Well, I think biopunk is usually portrayed as like sort of alien instead of human. So like the examples I'm familiar with, like Zerg, are sort of biopunk. I guess I wouldn't usually call them that way, but they sort of function that way. They have like biologic technology. But the one that I felt fit best was the Yuzheng Vong from Star Wars, if you've read those.
Oh yeah, like the flesh ships. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. Those are much
I definitely
more...
agree with you. I do think those are biopunk, but I think for me, the kind of medias that I drew from, I tried to like avoid drawing from things that are examples of something that is kind of biopunk coded inside of a larger piece of media that isn't about that at all.
Yeah, the Yuzheng Vong definitely has a lot of like there's also all this stuff about the Force that's layered on to the way they're presented. And the Zerg aren't even humans, like humanoids, so that doesn't work.
True, but no, don't get me wrong. Those are like really cool examples. I absolutely love like biopunk examples. They're usually like my favorite part of any like sci-fi or fantasy like media. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Do you have other examples? I had trouble like finding some that are like very concrete
of like biopunk things in non-biopunk media, or like biopunk media in itself.
Biopunk media in itself.
Oh god, yeah, absolutely, dude. I've got like a whole list in the actual document itself. I think my strongest original inspiration was Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind by Studio Ghibli. I don't know if you've seen that film, but
I have. It was a long time ago, though.
Well, yeah, absolutely incredible example of like biopunk media where it's like this a post-apocalyptic world with like weird insects and people growing like a massive fleshy soldiers for war purposes, but that's what caused the whole world to kind of become this kind of apocalyptic mess in the first place. And yeah, it is so alien, but it is like super interesting and like kind of super human and emotive at the same time. It's really cool. Yeah,
all of their work that's a good description for all the studio.
Absolutely true. It doesn't really distinguish it, but Nausicaa was, I think, one of the earliest films that specifically Hideo Miyazaki directed, and I believe he made a comic beforehand that the film was based on. I haven't read the comic. Boo me, I know, but I should do that eventually. But yeah, it's absolutely one of probably the biggest inspirations, and the rest is from different stories. Like there's from like literature, because there isn't much like filmic stuff. Probably the biggest
Attack on Titan was one I was thinking of, maybe.
Oh yeah, no, I do love, absolutely. Well, that's the thing though. It is very difficult to say if that is biopunk or not, because I kind of do agree with you, but also I don't know.
Because they're not really like, is it biopunk when the machine is like 50 feet tall? Like it's not really like.
I think it could be like, I think Attack on Titan could be like biopunk adjacent. I don't think it is directly biopunk.
Is Godzilla biopunk? It's like kind of the same genre. It's kaiju.
Ooh, that is so vague. Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. Is like I don't think biopunk has been set enough in the kind of like cultural consciousness for you to be able to say. Because I think I'm way too entrenched into it, obviously. So I could definitely see arguments for both sides. I don't know. There's a Godzilla movie called Godzilla minus one or something like that, I think.
Yeah, which is like probably the most recent one.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the most like biopunk Godzilla, because it really gets into the like fleshy meatiness and away from the like atomic bomb parallel,
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, you can kind of, if you get vague enough, you could probably be like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is super biopunk.
I think that's one of the things that I think is missing from these is that when you're talking about biopunk, you're talking about more of like a cultural and technological aesthetic to like the whole story, the whole setting.
Mm.
And I think what is missing from Frankenstein, Godzilla, and Attack on Titan is that it's not a whole culture that's like about biology used as technology. It's more about just this one thing.
It's not the central conceit of the story.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good way to tell whether something is like quote unquote biopunk or not, or if it contains biopunk elements. That would be a great way to distinguish it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've talked about the terminology as much as necessary. Yeah. So your game and your setting is called Synesthesia Synthetica.
Yes.
Which is a wonderful name. Love it. Hard to say.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, you could just say SNS. That's usually what people sort it to. Yeah.
Yeah. I did say that. Yes. Also easy to abbreviate and good to remember. So I like it. Well, yeah. Let's get into it. So this is it the setting is on Earth or something like Earth?
Yeah, it's set in an alternate future Earth after a calamity has occurred where people were doing deep space mining, and some incident occurred where a meteorite was sent down to Earth, and like the dinosaurs, it caused another ice age, basically, but this time kind of mixed with atomic bombs being like put off and a bunch of like power grid failure and stuff like that. And so during the post-apocalyptic reset where technology was being built up again, instead of going down the like normal path, somehow biotechnology was the dominant way of interacting with the world after that. And so like a bunch of like really strange biotechnological things sprouted up. A bunch of new species were engineered. A bunch of I don't know. It's hard to describe.
I'll sort of paint a picture for how that might have happened as you're describing it to me. Is like we reach a point in our lives where we're mining asteroids for fuel because we kind of run out of traditional fuel sources on Earth. We've used up all the nuclear power. We've used up all the oil, and solar, wind, and hydro are fine, but they're not really enough for like the advanced society that we're used to. So we're looking for other stuff on asteroids. And
maybe
accident happens, like you talk about. Everything breaks, and then people rebuild. But now we don't have those options for advanced tech. We don't have oil to draw from. We don't have nuclear power. All we have is those basic ones that are enough for like helping out with a few things, but they aren't enough for like having planes zipping around everywhere or manufacturing tons of guns and metal and plastic. So then people turn to alternatives, and biology is a great alternative. You know, what's the best way of using the sun for energy? Well, I mean, solar panels are fine, but also just growing corn and then turning it into fuel isn't bad either. Like, people do that.
That is an interesting way of thinking about it. Yeah, I don't know. In my thought process, because I do want to kind of keep it a little bit vague so people can kind of do their own thing with it. But
of course, yeah.
My thought process was like, at the point where we are as a civilization mining asteroids, there's definitely going to be some like weird genetic engineering going on with like, because there's already genetically engineered foods, genetically engineered babies to remove like disease and in vitro fertilization, all of that stuff. So it's just continuously going to get more and more elaborate. And so I don't know, maybe like a secret biotechnological lab in the like Alps or something survived the meteor impact, and that's because that's the only like piece of technology that survived. People started using flesh and stuff to make chips and make new races fit for purpose, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, path of least resistance, people will go for, whatever works. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so stuff evolves differently. How long after this, like, nuclear winter are we? Is it like 200 years? Longer?
Yeah, no, I do think it is 200 years. I think it's a little bit after, maybe 260 or something along those lines. I'm not sure of the
so you have more of a specific number in mind. Okay.
I kept it a little bit vague, but I think there is a number in the because I did a what's the word? I did a speculative timeline of things. So early 21st century, 2000 to 2050 would be the rise of biotechnology. So this is stuff we're already familiar with, like advanced genetic engineering for.
I used to work in the field, very familiar with it.
Yeah. And then we go to mid 21st century, so 2050 onwards to 2100, where there's like initial attempts at body modification. So, I mean, body modification is already a thing. Like, we already wear like earrings and get like nose piercings or get like subdermal implants and stuff like that. But this is the point where it gets like a little bit crazy, because medicine has evolved to a point where it's kind of safe to do so, and you're not going to be suffering long term. But it's still not the main technological precedent. There's still all of the other technology that exists. But in the late 21st century, 2100 to 2150, is when I have the exact reason, actually. Due to a glitch in the meteor stasis array, a large majority of the mining infrastructure breaks, causing a multiple impact event. So yeah, a bombardment of smaller meteors, not as big as the one that erased the dinosaurs, slams into the Earth. It messes up the nuclear system, because the world superpowers kind of panic, thinking that it's like maybe World War III or IV or whatever they've gone through at that point. And so, yeah, that like wipes the slate completely clean. And then 2250 to 2300 is the rise of biotechnology as we know it, where like super extreme body modification is happening to like survive the intense, frigid nuclear kind of semi-winter that the world has been set into. A bunch of like rich people have escaped into space, and they're like doing their own thing up there, doing like weird experiments. And then everyone down on Earth who has to kind of just survive because they weren't rich enough to buy a space apartment as to like do some like weird body mod stuff. Yeah. And that's how the setting worked out.
Yeah, the component of like the floating cities to me seemed a lot like I mean, it's used in all sorts of cyberpunk settings, so it totally makes sense in a biopunk setting, but specifically to me it seemed very much like how Alita Battle Angel is presented.
Oh, I do love
because you describe them as like
yeah.
You describe them as like floating mountains. So like, I think that's how they're portrayed in that media.
Yeah, I mean, I am very. I try to stay away from it as much as possible. Like, I have this like thing in the back of my head where I'm like, I shouldn't take from cyberpunk media because that's too close to biopunk, and so I feel kind of guilty whenever I do. But well, I know absolutely it sneaks in there, you know.
I mean, I get what you're saying about like wanting to have your own thing, and biopunk is its own separate identity. But I also feel like there's sort of a audience expectation that they can see some familiarity within what you're doing.
There is, and
makes sense.
I mean, this was originally a cyberpunk thing in the first place. There is absolutely no way that I'm going to be able to get away from that. But I do like my best effort to try and make it's its own thing. So there's less of like this kind of bleed through, you know.
Yeah, there's like this sort of artist intention of like, if I take from that, then it's not mine and it doesn't count.
That's the little voice in my head.
Right. Yeah. I know. I have that same feeling. So this is an actual future Earth. So we evolved along the same path up to about, I don't know, maybe sometime in the 1900s. Not super important for when it diverged. And then big disaster and nuclear winter. Everyone has to adapt, and now we have biopunk because that's how people adapted.
Yes,
and
exactly.
From what you've described so far, culture has also gone on this super differentiated route where, different from other cyberpunk ones, or other, I guess, punk in general, where there's sort of like the man's in charge because he's always been in charge. Is this still that way, where like, you know, the people that went up in space to survive are like the man that we're fighting against, or is it more like the people that control the biotechnology, or both?
No, biotechnology in the world of SNS is very, like, it is very for the people. Like, everyone can use biotechnology, rich or poor. The thing that is the kind of great evil in my world is, as you said, the first option, which is the people up in space. It is a kind of like literal distinction where it's like, oh, you know, the higher up you are, literally, the higher up the food chain you are. But yeah, I think it works as a very good, like, metaphor.
Okay, so it's kind of like the same power structures that existed like hundreds of years ago have basically survived by using that, is the idea.
Yeah, I tried to make it like as like theoretically possible as possible, you know? Like I didn't want it to be like, yeah, that could happen. It's very like unlikely to happen, but it could happen. I mean, we already have like real world CEOs that already go up into space and do weird stuff, so you know, it makes sense.
I'm just like, you know, checking my notes here on like how this evolved. And,
no, yeah, you got it exactly. Yeah.
So we still have like the same corporate overlords, but now it's like their great grandchildren or something, or whoever.
Yeah, I mean, I do want it to be a little bit departed. So I mean, whoever the corporate overlord, like super rich billionaire children that were raised by like personal AI and stuff like that up in space, they are going to be a little bit weird compared to modern day examples. I do want them to be like kind of like freaky, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Because you just imagine like you're because it's already like an unfathomable amount of power and riches and like lifestyle that I think it would drive any normal person like insane. Yeah, if you had the ability to just like beam a super death laser down on Earth, and it's like, oh, it's my 18th birthday, I'm gonna carve my name in the like Swiss Alps or something, you know.
Or with a less hostile version, I feel like Jaden Smith is like a decent example of like what a person like that exists today.
Absolutely, but just like way more extreme, I think, on both ends. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're living on like a literally like different celestial body, you might no longer feel like you have any connection to the people living on Earth.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's both ends. Like if you're down on Earth and you're living your life, you're probably never gonna interact with anybody who's up in space, but it's still kind of this like punk thing where it's like, yeah, fuck the people who get to live in these giant space like apartments, mansions, you know. Yeah.
Are the super rich people up there, are they also using biotechnology, or are they still using like the electric stuff from the past?
They are using biotechnology, but to a much like lesser and more refined extent than the people down on Earth. So obviously they still have all of like the kind of quote unquote regular technology where they have spaceships and stuff like that, but because they're, like, as you said, descendants of super rich billionaires. They don't have any tech skills, and so all of their space mansion things are being like not very well maintained, and so they have to resort to taking the biotechnology from down on Earth and using it to essentially make their homes work properly.
So they get a hole in their spaceship and they have to like patch it with a bio steel monster or something.
Yeah, that's a good conceit. Exactly that perfect description. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, in terms of like their personal use of biotechnology, it'd probably be like if they got some weird scar or something, they could like make it look really pretty and ornate instead of having these like super weird like graphic scars that someone down on Earth who couldn't afford that sort of thing would be able to get. I wanted to contrast the economic differences, you know? Like if you have the ability to access this, you're going to get the best version no matter what. So they all look as beautiful as possible.
That actually was where my next question was going to go, was like, how do people pay for things? Like if society is destroyed in this way, like I get them surviving. They have the money to make a spaceship and go up there and survive. But how do they have the money to maintain like economic control hundreds of years later? Like whatever company they were CEO of is certainly destroyed at this point. Currency is probably, they're not, I'm assuming they aren't using US dollars or whatever at this 300 years in the future. So how have they maintained their wealth?
So my thinking is it's essentially like this kind of space feudalism thing that's going on. Money does exist, but it's no longer, as you said, dollars. It's like lucre and cassif and like some like weird alternate world versions. But essentially, the people up in space need the people down on Earth way more than the people down on Earth need the people up in space.
Right.
But obviously, the people up in space can't let the people down on Earth know that, so they construct a veil of like authoritarian webbing all over everyone to try and convince them that they are all powerful gods, and to a certain point they are, but I mean, things are slowly failing up there. Yeah,
like I was presenting it as they don't have anything of real value to trade in exchange for whatever
they have
from the surface.
Absolutely nothing except for the money, and if everyone believes in the money, then they do have all of the power.
Right. And if they're still presented as these like sort of, the royals in Britain, for example, don't really have, like, if the parliament said we don't want to have kings anymore, they could. They just don't, because it's nice to have a royal family. So True. It seems like these are almost existing that way, but maybe with a more religious tone to it. Like the Emperor of Japan has more of that religious feeling to it.
I wouldn't say religious. I would say, I mean, yeah, probably there is some religiosity to it. Like there are people definitely that are down on Earth who are like worshipping the people up there. But I would say it's more of like this kind of constructed thing where it's like they're there and you just can't do anything about it. That's how the world works. Is there's these people up in space who you will never meet, who siphon everything, and they're all powerful, and you can't do anything against them because they have space lasers. So, Well,
yeah. I mean, I didn't necessarily mean like explicitly like these are the gods up in space, then we worship them. I meant more like like you said, there's a cultural expectation, and that can be like the divine right of kings, or I like Elon Musk because he's a funny billionaire, whatever people want to say.
Yeah, all of that stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking also like there was this thing I came across called someone talking about making like this atomic cult to preserve like information around the dangerousness of atomic weapons and that sort of thing. And that could be also linked to it, where it's like they've they've definitely got some religions that they just made to make themselves more rich and powerful as well. Yeah,
that's part of the issue with disposing of nuclear waste, is like trying to come up with warnings that will be understood millions of years from now.
Yeah, that's the exact thing I'm referencing. One of the ideas for that was to create like this atomic cult, essentially, where they would keep the oral tradition of atomic weapons. But like everyone immediately dismissed the idea because there's like, yeah, everyone's eventually going to go crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I meant like they have, pictures of skull and crossbones that will hopefully be understood for a long time. But okay, so cult of personality is how the upper classes have maintained their control up in space.
Yeah. Cult of personality, super long in the long-term scheme of things. Not actually that long, but longer than a couple human lives. And yeah, they're doing some weird people things out there. We have no idea. Yeah.
Freaky rich people shit.
Exactly.
How has like more actual religions survived through this?
I haven't really touched on that. I don't really explore religion in my creative work that much. I have a reference to Christianity. So Christianity is probably existent in some way or another. But yeah, I've kept it very vague because I don't really have much of a connection to religion myself. So
fair enough. Yeah, it's just not the focus.
I mean, well, I do like it. Like there is one of the races is the Hellions, right? So like the demon people.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of logical conceit behind their existence is there was this religious guy who had experience with biotechnology in terms of like genetic manipulation and stuff like that, and he managed to create this race of demon people as a religious scapegoat or some sort of like something related to being like this depiction of the Christian evil.
Mm-hmm.
And the race proved successful enough that they propagated. And so, yeah, that's why there are demon people in SNS. Yeah.
All right, I do want to talk about the races more later. But I wanted to finish breaking down like the more social structure a bit more.
Okay.
Because we've been talking about like just the people up in space and their relation to the ground dwellers, but I'm also assuming there's a social structure on the ground as well that might vary place to place. Do you have like a particular country or set of countries that you're focusing on for this?
I do have it in the like 1.8 version of SNS, but I've removed it from the subsequent version that I'm working on currently. I tried to make, like, originally I was like, yeah, there's going to be kings and like super rich people down on Earth as well. But I really like the rich poor divide of all the people being up in space and there being like zero middle class. So I have tried to focus on that more in the newest version. And I'd say, I mean, obviously there are people who are going to be richer, but it's going to be much less of like a noticeable thing. Everyone down on Earth is going to be pretty much equal for the most part, I think. But yeah, that's just my personal conceit. If you're running it where you can have like super rich people down on Earth, go for it.
Well, follow-up question to that. Is it like a nice egalitarian society, or is it more like people crawling over each other to get the biggest piece of bread or something?
More of like down on Earth is like people support each other because it's like us versus them type deal, you know?
Okay.
And so if you're somebody who is from down well, which is my like terminology for it, down the gravity well, yeah, you're gonna be, for the most part, pretty like supportive of your fellow man because they're probably no better off than you are. But yeah, that's not going to be very interesting, like roleplay wise. So obviously you got to have some dicks and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously in general, yes. We're making a role-playing game. There has to be conflict.
Absolutely. I don't know. I'm not very good at like imagining the society of SNS. My main thing has been like just the visual and like informational aspects around it. I don't know how exactly I think I am building it slowly. Like I want to add some like references to food culture, and I do have some small snippets around each of the races and like how they interact with other races and like the tensions they're in and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, food culture for like a biomodification culture, you're gonna have any texture and taste that you want.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the best way to like really delve into it. I had this idea of like including a bunch of like really weird recipes that you could potentially make in real life, but are also like super weird and hard to make. Could be cool. Yeah. I don't know.
Come out with the SNS cookbook.
No, because I saw this YouTube video made by a person called I think Thought Emporium is the name of the YouTube channel, where he made grapes that he grew like active meat cultures inside. So he made like meat grapes. And I'm like, oh, that is such a perfect idea for SNS. Meat grapes, yeah. Crazy. Yeah.
It's using the grape as the scaffold for it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's really cool. Weird. But absolutely love ideas like that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the races. You've got I mean the picture on your website is some sort of mole person.
Hey, that's a new one. Usually people go for like sheep. Yeah, most people say sheep, but mole is definitely a new one. Yeah, which one do you want to talk about? I don't know.
Well, I don't even know what the list is.
Okay, so we have human, syllabub, which is the mole person that you pointed out. Cognitive, which is like psychic people. Data dolls, which are like, it's a little bit hard to describe, but I guess like closest parallel would be like D&D Warforged, maybe. Okay. Hellions, which are like the demon people. Taken, which are like tiny little parasites that take over people. And then for the update, this isn't actually included in the 1.8 version yet, but a new race called the Delicatessen, which I'm still working on.
It's where the food is coming in.
Yep. I'm glad you got that.
What the more like synthetic robot one? What did you call that one again?
Data dolls. So the idea behind the data dolls is they're essentially ceramic shells filled with meat, and all of that meat contains essentially DNA structures, and that's used as information storage. So they're like walking USB people, essentially.
Okay, so like the idea of like a DNA computer where you use the 4-letter code to store info. Okay. Yes, I've heard about that, but it's never seemed like it made sense to produce. But
I mean, yeah, but if you don't have regular computers, what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually a very good way of storing information. It's just the writing and reading of it is a pain compared to other storage methods.
I have no idea how it happens, but it does happen somehow. They figured it out. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's sci-fi. If you try to actually come up with real answers for some of this stuff, you're gonna write yourself into a corner. Don't bother.
I'm sure there'll be some like weird person who joins my like server and is like, I've figured it out. This is how they do it. and because I've already had some people talking about like the Fakins and Hellions and be like, yeah, that's how that happened. So yeah, maybe one day we shall see.
Yeah. Just leave it open. Your fans will come up with an answer for you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we have humans that are still normal people. The what did you call it again? The mole,
Syllabubs?
sheep, goat people, syllabubs. Which I'm assuming that there's a reason that each of these different modifications show up. So
yeah.
let's go through each of them and talk about like why they exist. So we did data dolls. You kind of talked about Hellions already. What about the syllabubs?
Syllabubs are the ones that were made to survive the super cold environment down on Earth. So they're like furry creatures built like tanks to contain as like much heat as possible.
Oh, it's a seal, not a mole. Okay.
Yeah, but they're built to survive a super cold environment. They have like weird feet that don't have toes, so that they can move on the snow a little bit better, like built-in snowshoes essentially. Okay. And yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the exact thought process I went through when I was designing their like facial structure and everything like that, but I remember looking up images of like snow foxes and other wintry creatures, I think. I'm not sure if I looked at a seal, maybe. Not sure about that one.
It has fur, but it seems very close to its body, so that's what had me think seal.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, probably. It definitely makes sense if you think through it enough, I'm sure.
And then they've just got really giant feet for walking on the snow.
Yeah. And then they're like super muscular because, I don't know, like living in like a super hellish like winter environment like that, you have to be muscular to survive, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. What was the next one? You Fakins?
Yeah, Fakins. So these are the like community favorite, where they're these tiny little 15 centimeter slimy little creatures that are parasites. They were made for, I guess, infiltration purposes. I'm not sure what the exact reason behind them is. But yeah, they take over people. So if you come across a Fakin and they like the way you look, or they like the kind of access you have, they'll crawl down your throat, break a hole in the back of your skull, and puppet you around, you know? Yeah.
What the hell, man? The gray was like a little bodysuit.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm assuming you can't really... The person that they do this to isn't coming back after that.
Only if you're super powerful. So they have a chart as part of their like racial attributes, where basic humans definitely not coming back from something like that. But if you're a like legendary type creature, there's a chance that you'll survive the takeover. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we covered humans because humans are boring. We covered syllabubs for the cold.
Yeah.
Fakins for creepy espionage stuff. Hellions as scary monsters. Data dolls as the fancy USB drive that you don't have to carry in your pocket.
Exactly.
And I think you mentioned one more.
There's two more. Cognitives
two more.
And delicatessens.
Okay. Cognitives was the one I was thinking of.
Cognitives are psychics. They were made by the government before the asteroids dropped, and after the asteroids dropped, they came out. They managed to escape because like the government down on Earth basically fell apart. And that's how they became their own genetic lineage, because they managed to like kind of interbreed after they left their government lockdowns.
Okay. So
No.
psychics is usually something that I don't think of as like a specific biomodification. Although I get it though, because like it's, there's, if it exists, there's probably a gene for it, and then you can breed for that gene. But like the other ones, I feel like they can sort of like can't necessarily interbreed with normal humans anymore, just because they're so physically different. But a psychic feels like it's like a cognitive would be able to still masquerade as a human.
Oh, I mean, yeah. In the actual description of them, they look essentially like a human. The only thing that's different about them is that they manifest a third eye somewhere on their body sometimes. And
okay.
I think other visceral distinctions is like they don't have a sclera, so like the thing around the pupil, they don't have that. But other than that, yeah, they look pretty normal. They're just really short, like dwarfs.
Just short and have no sclera. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that would come across as normal today, to be honest.
Well, no, but if you think about it in the biopunk world where everyone's like got like nose rings and weird hair and stuff like that, I feel like, like, oh yeah, you just change your eyes.
So they just have like a really large iris instead? Is that the idea? Like the way that dogs and other mammals do?
Yeah, they just have like a really white, like a large white iris with really wide eyes and then a single black pupil. Yeah.
Not two black pupils?
Sorry. Well, yeah, I was thinking, I don't know.
Just the specification of single within an eye, like, oh, okay. So are there other species that have two pupils per eye?
Well, I mean, syllabubs don't have any pupils, their eyes are just kind of gray. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you don't have any, like, lizard people.
Well, it's like, I don't know, like, when I was thinking through it, I definitely did want to add one, but I just kind of couldn't justify it, because, like, lizard people are cold-blooded, and, I mean, I guess I could make them warm-blooded by, like, because they are going to be humanoid, right? But then also, I don't know, I felt a little bit iffy. Yeah.
Yeah, why would that evolve is a good question.
Yeah, like, what would be the point of having lizard, snake, or, like, any kind of reptilian species?
Someone's fetish, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I've tried to appeal to the furry crowd with syllabubs, but they don't really seem to like them, at least the like couple of furries I know.
I mean, if someone wants to play a furry RPG, they're going to play Ironclaw. They're not going to bother with SNS. Is my take on that.
True, but like, I like to cater a little bit, at least.
yeah. Okay, you got to make a cat
fur.
person and a dog person to get bring that group in.
Well, I mean, in a biopunk setting, you could definitely like genetically engineer yourself to be a furry person of some sort in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
It makes sense in the like logical conceit of things. So absolutely furry friendly, I say.
Well, I think these are things that could exist as more like one-offs, where like, yeah, maybe there's a few people that look like dogs or cats or crocodiles, but it's not something that's common enough to have like a devoted race to it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. There's no races are in my setting are like controlled by the high Earth peoples, by the like government of people in high Earth orbit, and so every species that has survived has been given a HSRC rating and allowed to exist. And any
HSRC,
human contact survival rating or something like that. Like I think that's the acronym.
Okay.
Where if you're deemed safe enough and intelligent enough to interact with a human, then you're allowed to exist and are not genocided immediately. Yeah.
Of course.
I think the only race that doesn't have a listing on the HSRC rating is the Fakin, but because they are capable of like taking over people, nobody can really do anything about that. So that was my logical conceit for that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We're missing one more. Delicatessens.
Yeah. Saving the best for last, I guess. I don't know.
The most recent for last.
Yeah, they're basically humanoids that were made for consumption. Essentially, they were made as like meat people, and yeah, I don't know. That's the logic behind it. They're probably the most like morbid to think about in terms of the ethics and stuff behind having.
Well, if you're gonna make like a sort of cannibal person to consume, why would you make them intelligent?
To make them like it,
To make it so they like being eaten?
Yeah. So all of the delicatessens in their like species, like little listicle thing, I have it so that they enjoy being eaten, and they are
talk
like
about fetishes, man. Wow.
Well, yeah, but fetishes for the story, I suppose.
It doesn't have to be sexual. It can still be a fetish, but Jesus.
Well, yeah, I try not to think about that. It's just purely to make the world as interesting as possible. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So they're a race of people that tastes really good and derives pleasure from being eaten. Do they also like regenerate really quickly so they can like chop off a bit of their bicep and then grow it back the next day?
Yeah, so the delicatessen have this extreme healing factor. So extreme, in fact, that if they just let it happen, they will like cook themselves from the inside out, basically.
Wow.
Because of like how crazy their cells are going at any one time. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to keep this race, to be honest. A lot of people who hear the concept, same as your reaction, are kind of like, oh. But, it makes a lot of sense. But, yeah, it does get a bit of like a yikes reaction. So, I don't know.
Well, I mean, is it going to drive anyone away? Probably not. Is it going to bring anyone into the game? Also, probably not. If you think about it from that perspective, maybe it's not worth having it in there. I don't know, but
I don't know. Like, I did have two other race ideas. One was this werewolf race that would transform into lobster people, because there's this like scientific concept of carcinization where everything evolves into crab, and so I was like, that's going to be put in there somewhere. But I don't know, it felt a little bit too weak, so I ended up removing that. And then there was another one which was bird people, because a lot of people asked for a race that could fly, and so I did briefly look into adding that sort of thing, but that also felt like very weak, because I was kind of like, am I going to make their bones like super brittle or easy to snap or something like that? I don't know. It was, yeah, I've been kind of bloating through a bunch of ideas for SNS 1.9.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, the desire for flight is something that I feel like, if there was biomodification, it would make sense for people to go in that direction, just because it's almost like a primal human desire to want
absolutely.
To fly.
Yeah. So, I was thinking of either making it a body mod that you could install into yourself, but that also felt like maybe a little bit too powerful. So I was thinking about maybe level gating it. But then again, if I was going to level gate it to something super extreme, why not just make it its own species? Because then I could have inherent downsides built in. Because a lot of the complaints around flight in like D&D, for example, is that it's super overpowered and makes the whole combat space completely useless, basically.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the way combat works in SNS is pretty similar to D&D. I mean, it does have some like super drastic differences, but in terms of how you interact with it, it is pretty similar. And so, yeah, having a race that could fly could break things. Yeah.
Well, if I
I
could
don't know.
have a suggestion there,
Yeah.
you could have a race that is like super good at trapping helium. So then, like, it doesn't. It not a race, but like a species, and it's used as a tool for flight. By like you strap on this like helium pack, kind of thing.
That could be cool. That could look really cool and weird as well. Yeah, like they have like balloon heads or something. That could be fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. However you want to. You're the artist here.
I don't know. We'll come up with something. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that is a cool idea. I'm still thinking through things. 1.9 has been the like longest taking update of SNS. Everything else has been like maybe a month or so between updates, and 1.8 has lasted an incredibly long time in terms of updates. And so 1.9, I think, is going to be like a really, really extreme change for a lot of people who are enjoying and playing SNS.
Cool.
Hopefully they like it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it also seemed like you described a little bit of genetically engineered horrors are something that occurs within this. So it's not just people modifying themselves, but also creating like, the Death Claw from Fallout as another bio monster.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people have made and are making things like that as well.
Yeah, 100%. I haven't created a bestiary yet, but I have created a bunch of creatures, as in modeled them. So I do have a bunch of 3D models for creatures that I just haven't made like stat layouts for.
Cool.
Yeah. Actually, I've made some like really weird, freaky creatures with like multiple arms and.
What is the point of this one? It just looks gross. How is this an advantage?
It's supposed to be like a tank, basically. The like massive, like weird, fleshy tubule coming out of the front of its face is like the place where it shoots from, right?
Okay. All right.
And then I have a couple of the weird like 3D models of like I came up with this idea of a super fast racing creature based off of the dog things from Snow Crash. It's a cyberpunk book that I read recently, and I've got a bunch of like weird ideas, but modeling weird biological horrors beyond your imagination is pretty hard, unfortunately.
I feel like it could just become like sort of mentally exhausting to try and think of how can I make this look gross over and over again.
Well, no, that's the thing, though. I really want to stray as far away from making it look gross as possible, because one of the main things I kind of dislike about people's idea of biopunk is that it has to be like inherently disgusting, Like there's a lot of YouTube videos I've seen, or like generally whenever you search up like biopunk online, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's the most nasty of all the punk suffix genres,
Well,
yeah.
I think I'm like it's good that you're trying to do that, I think. And I think it will come through in the art that you produce. What you've shared here is a bad example. But I think part of the issue there is that the uncanny valley effect, right? Where like the syllabub isn't too close to be scary, like I can tell from this picture. The cognitive, though, that might be something where people look at that and they just don't like it because it looks a little too gross.
Well, I think I'm okay with uncanny valley, though. I think the thing that I don't like is the idea that a lot of people attribute where it's like, oh yeah, it's disgusting. Because I don't know. For me, I do have like a very high tolerance for like I guess, body horror and stuff like that. So, for example, like pointing out another piece of media, like the video game Scorn. For me, I absolutely love that art style. But yeah, I can absolutely get the kind of gross, like, body horror viscerality from that a lot of people don't like. So I don't know. It's a really hard, I guess, line to balance, I guess, because I on the one hand, I do really want to lean into the fact that, yeah, you're in this TTRPG, you are going to be like cutting yourself up, you are going to be replacing your body parts, you are going to be dealing with the kind of existential concept of being a consciousness inside of a body, of being like this, like meat mech, essentially, with a brain piloting
like altered carbon,
puppet.
like you don't.
No, yeah,
Altered Carbon
absolutely.
is a cyberpunk
Another
version of
super
that.
big inspiration. I love Altered Carbon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really want to focus more on the humanity side of things rather than the, I guess, viscerality side of things. But then I also love the viscerality side of things. So it is an absolutely impossible line to walk. Yeah, I don't know.
You just got to make what you got to make, right? Like you can't necessarily make those people happy.
I don't think it's I think I've had this conversation with people so many times who always give the advice of like, yeah, you just got to make it for you because you know what you want, and what you want will appeal to other people who want the same thing as you want. And I do agree with them, but then also there is this kind of need to, I mean, I want to make this as a product, right, that people want to play. And so I think if I was to go as wild as possible, it would definitely, I think, turn off a lot of people. And so you kind of have to filter it through a more artistic lens where you kind of pick and choose what things need to be included. Like the image I sent you of the like weird tank creature, I don't think I'm even going to be including that in the actual document because it is a bit too kind of visceral, like freaky horror to it, you know? And I want to kind of make it so that, like, you know, the people who are in this world are a little bit more intelligent with what they create with their biotechnology, you know? I don't know.
They're not just making monsters to make monsters.
Yeah, you make it for a reason. Like, if you are going to be making like some super creepy, horrifying thing, there has to be a reason behind it, and that doesn't really help with making things not horrifying because humans are terribly inventive creatures at the worst of times. So, yeah, I don't know. Something I guess I'll never be able to properly fidget and fix with, I guess.
Yeah. Well, along those lines of like making something that's like true to yourself, I also understand when you put so much effort into something, like the standard for success in producing it isn't necessarily like, I like this, now I'm done with it and it's going in the closet forever, right? Like, yeah, there's some standard of success that exists outside of that, even if it's your own personal success. Like, not I made $2,000 selling this game on itch and now I'm good. It can be like 10 people gave me a compliment on it when I showed it. I think that is definitely
what drives me. Yeah, and I mean you as well with this podcast, I presume. Yeah, I really like the idea of being able to have a certain amount of like niche cultural reach, you know? The idea that there is somebody out there who I've made this game for and it is their most perfect TTRPG that they love more than anything else is like my dream. That would be amazing if I could just make like with like such authorial intent that whomever interacts with it, they find it and they're like, yeah, this is my thing. I love it. That would be the dream. Yeah.
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 Okay, so the monsters that exist are created with some purpose. So this one's a tank. I'm assuming there's some big claw monster or a little one that delivers your mail, kind of like a pigeon, but you can sort of give it an address. I don't know.
Okay. If we're going to discuss like the weird little biocon creations, let me find a couple of good examples then. Okay, one of them is the polar bear mech exoskeleton or exosuit, which is essentially a like genetically modified polar bear with all of their internal organs essentially ripped out or like placed in other parts of the body or like made smaller for a humanoid to be able to access their internals and pilot them as a mech, essentially.
Okay.
And due to like the way my system works, these are counted as non-sentient creatures because essentially the brain was scooped out so that the person could pilot them around.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're like biological machines. Another one is let's see. Okay. Ballpoint pen. A clear plastic shell betrays the ink-producing organoid inside. A vestigial digestive system pumps ink into the little space between the end of the creature and the ballpoint tip. 1,000 strokes before death is etched into the plastic along one side, along with a cartoony representation of the little organoid. That's one of the examples of starting items that you can start with in SNS 1.9 as an example of how biotechnology is used.
A biopen.
Yeah, it's a pen with like a little ink creature. So maybe they used like a squid or something and modified it so it could survive in a zero oxygen environment long enough for 1,000 strokes. And then it dies.
I'm just like, that's one that I'm kind of questioning the logic on. Wouldn't it just make more sense to harvest the ink from the squid and then like make a pen with that ink?
Maybe, but I'm thinking, like if we were thinking about this as like this kind of hellish capitalistic system, that would make more sense, but perhaps would be less profitable, because if you create this like little creature that produces ink, then perhaps like the pen has more of a I don't know.
We have to turn everything into software as a service so that people will have to buy it over and over again.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. Like, yeah, you want to keep your little personal ink creature alive, so buy these like 10 extra upgrades to be able to keep them alive for a little bit longer or something.
Hang on, guys, I have to go to the store to buy food for my pen.
Yeah, no, you know how like insane people went for like Tamagotchis back in the day? Just imagine that, but with like everything as a Tamagotchi.
Okay, all right.
Could be cool. I don't know. Let's see. What's another one? Lantern worm. Engineered to stay in its premature state, the lantern worm will never reach the point at which will turn into a pupa or become an adult fly. Shaken to activate it, the blue-green lights last for about 15 minutes before the light fades and must be shaken again. Unfortunately, this little critter has been a little bit too overzealously engineered and only lasts for about 10 days. Planned obsolescence at its finest. So cheap and easy to replace, though. It's another one. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the sort of kind of idea behind some of the, I guess, not animals, but just kind of like items that would be standard in a biopunk world, I guess.
Yeah, the technology pieces.
Yeah. And then, as I said, I haven't created a bestiary yet, but there'll definitely be some like freaky ass creatures eventually.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, let's talk about the actual system now. So I guess we mentioned races, and you kind of mentioned like what their advantages are a little bit. But what's like the resolution system like? So if I want to, do something, how do I do that mechanically?
Okay. The resolution system for SNS is based off of a system that was created by a couple friends of mine called the Marching 7 system, where as you gain levels in the game, your dice that you're using as the way to create a resolution for a check marches up from a D2 at the start of the game all the way to 2D12 at the end of the game when you're around level 100.
It's pretty big.
Yeah. So 1 to 12, you're going to be using a D2, and then something like level 53 to 60, you'll be using a D12 plus a D2, and so on and so forth. So like every couple dozen levels or so, you go up a dice, and it's essentially like a mix of an exploding dice system plus a DC, sorry. Yes, a dice DC.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's any other major systems that I'm aware of that use that.
I think it's pretty unique. I think it's pretty interesting. I was really happy with it when my friends helped me make it. It is probably the, I guess, best for SNES that I think has managed to create. Like it was made around SNES version 1.5 or something like that, and I don't think I'm ever going to plan on changing it. Like it's really, really good. It works so well. Probably the best mechanic in all of SNES because it was made by me. Because I'm terrible at math, unfortunately. Yeah, but you use all of the dice except for a D20. So like all of the like regular dice in the dice set except for a D20, because the D20 is saved for something special, which is called leverage. If I was to compare it to something, it would be similar to inspiration in D&D or something, where if you have a point of leverage, you can use that to re-roll your roll. But if you have 2 points of leverage, you can use that to roll with a D20 and potentially get like a super extreme advantage than what you would be able to get for your average level, which is, I think, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. Yeah, allows players to, like, if they were trying to do something super crazy, like jump over the Grand Canyon as a level 2 character, if they have role played well enough, they'd be able to use a D20. And I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but, maybe.
Got a better chance of maybe a smaller goal, but I get the idea of what you're saying there.
Yeah. What else? I don't know. It's kind of hard describing mechanics. I guess I could describe like combat next, because combat in SNES is pretty unique.
Sure.
Okay. So combat in SNES, number one, is player facing. So during pretty much the whole game, even not including combat, the storyteller, which is my version of the GM for SNES, is like barely ever going to be rolling at all. It is 99% of the time going to be the players rolling for something. In combat especially, you roll for yourself, and then you also roll for your enemy. So when you say, I'm going to do X to the enemy, like I'm going to shoot them with my gun, you would roll for yourself. You would then roll for your enemy's reaction. And then based off of what they get, you would be able to do your damage or whatever action you're trying to do.
That's a bit different. Most of the systems were like you're the only one that rolls and not the monsters. It's like you roll an attack and like you hit or not, and then if they attack you, you roll defense against some sort of static number for that monster. But having it be like you're rolling, the players are rolling both is quite different than a lot of those other presentations.
I think it makes, at least my design conceit for it was like it makes players feel a little bit more like they have a sense of fairness about things. Like there's absolutely no way for me to fudge stuff if you're the one rolling things, right? And I'm sorry to those who like do fudge in their TTRPG games. I apologize, but you're gonna have to find some other way to bend the world around the story. I mean, obviously it is possible, but yeah, you can keep like health numbers secret and stuff like that. But yeah, for the player experience, because I have been in the player seat, I absolutely despise the idea of that happening, and so I tried to kind of minimize it as much as possible from like a psychological perspective.
Okay.
And then what else? What else is interesting about combat? There is no initiative in SNES, so whatever player wants to do something, they can do something, and it is determined that players can do whatever they want in whatever order, but every player gets a turn. And then when all players have done, the storyteller will tell the players what the enemies are doing, and then the players will roll for the enemies and then do their own reactions and stuff based off of what numbers I give for the enemy stats and stuff like that.
Okay, so kind of side-based initiative where like the players go first and then the monsters.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. Why don't we talk about character creation? Like, I mean, we talked about races. Are there classes, or is this more like a pick your skills kind of system?
Yeah, so there's character creation. I think in SNES, I think is pretty easy compared to a lot of other TTRPGs. I tried to make it as streamlined as possible. In 1.9, unfortunately, it is a little bit crunchier than it was, and I am trying to like iron that out as much as possible. But the stats have gone up from, I think, 12 in the old version of the game to 20 in the new version. So a bit of a jump. But yeah, it's pretty easy. You pick a archetype, which is your class essentially, and your genotype, which is your species. And you combine their stats together. So there's no rolling for stat layout or anything like that. You just combine your archetype stats and your genotype stats together. And then what you do roll for is your starting money. So at the start of the game, whatever starting money you get, you can use that to buy items and weapons and armor and stuff to give yourself what your starting kit is.
And these are all like bio weapons? Or, well, not all bio weapons, but like biotechnology pieces.
Yes, pretty much. It's like weird flesh weapons that do like weird. Oh no, actually, that does remind me. Thank you. Yeah, my system has some like really unique status effects. Okay, so the status effects in SNES are psychic damage, burning damage, freezing damage, toxic, and those are like the kind of normal ones. Then it becomes parasitic damage, electrical damage, leech damage, fungal, cancer, insomnia, and then cutting, rot, and then there's a final one that isn't really a damage type called shuffle, which when you have a weapon that has a shuffle status effect, when you use it, it shuffles through all of the other 12 stats. And so every time you enter combat, it's kind of different. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's cool. Cancer is my favorite because it basically causes your body mods to be rapidly ejected from your body whenever you get hit by cancer. So if you have like a super powerful body mod, there's a chance that it'll just be completely disabled in combat, which I think is quite brutal, but also quite fun.
Just pops off you. It's too big for you now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious what type of stories you'd be able to tell with this as well. Like, is it mainly for like that fight the power kind of stuff? Like what?
Well, no, actually, fight the power stuff. Even though that was my original intent, that's like barely ever happened in pretty much any of my test campaigns or things that have been run by other people. Unfortunately, I mean, just a lot of interesting stories. Definitely, they tend to get very weird immediately because of just like the amount of weird stuff that's already in the game. So I had one campaign where the players were taking down an evil fruit company, and so they were fighting genetically modified fruits that had gone kind of crazy, and there was like they were fighting like giant mangoes and other stuff like that, and doing weird things. What else? I ran a campaign called the Iron Plague Hypothesis, which was an attempt from high Earth orbit people to bring back regular technology down on Earth by creating a bioengineered plague that would cause everyone's naturally occurring iron in their body to burst out in horrific body horror.
Okay.
And it was a very interesting campaign where the players were trying to solve the mystery of how do you cure the Iron Plague and who was like the original scientist that created it and stuff like that. And because the world is like very naturalistic, if you ignore the weird biopunk parts, they got a little bit too overzealous, went to prison, busted out of prison. I think one of the players made like a weird Christmas album that she was advertising to people because she was one of the archetypes, which was like a bard. It's not called a bard in my game; it's called an idol. But she was essentially being like, "Yeah, I've got a Christmas album." And, that was one of the ways she was using her idol abilities.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't know. It gets really strange. I do love how weird SNES could get. Like, I know D&D stories are already like kind of fever dreams, but I think SNES turns that up to 11. If you were to tell an SNES story to somebody, they'd think you need to go to like a mental hospital maybe, and I quite like that.
Okay, so it's more of a like, it seems like a lot of the stories that you've described here focus on some piece of biotechnology or bioengineered thing, and it like breaking or needing to be acquired or something along those lines. So it's focusing on the technology for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. The most recent campaign that I'm running is more of me trying to focus and bring in some of this fight the power stuff, where they're these people who came in from the normal timeline and were frozen, and so their genetic stock is untainted by the radioactive fallout of the world going to shit.
Right.
And because they are essentially like pure, they're being hunted by the people in high Earth orbit for their genetic code. And I think that's like a really interesting way of trying to bring it back to the fight the power stuff, because it makes it feel a little bit more personal. Because I'm like, hey, don't kill me, you know. But I don't know how successful it is. It's my attempt, you know. Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something that you might want to change as you continue designing it, to try and make it be something that's more, I don't want to say forced on the players, but more encouraged, I suppose?
What, to do the whole like fight the power narrative?
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, yes, because that is the original intent of the story. But the more I think about it, and especially like the conversation we had at the start about punk being like just kind of like suffix to add on to something that doesn't really mean like a fight the power type deal. Right. I think, I don't know. I do like the way the stories kind of naturally evolve in SNES. And obviously I do want to add more control in terms of the direction I want people to go. But that's going to be something that is added at like as like a little thing at the bottom, where it's like, I think you should do this because this means the story will be the way I perceive it to be. But, you know, like a lot of playtesters I've already seen don't really care about that stuff, and they kind of just use the mechanics to create the story. And so anytime I do want to do something, I have to like tweak the mechanics directly, because writing out advice on how I want the story to be done is essentially always going to be ignored in my experience.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking more like a mechanic, like the heat mechanic in Blades in the Dark, like where you catch more heat from the cops if you do something.
Yeah.
But
I don't. That's thinking of a mechanic that is like a fight the power mechanic that is so broad that I don't know if it is possible. I don't know. I don't think I've tried to look up TTRPGs that focus more on the punk side of things, but it either ends up falling into like this kind of political quagmire where it's so focused on this political message that it doesn't hold any value as an actual piece of enjoyable art, or like the fight the power stuff doesn't really hold much water, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's a like worthy thing to chase after, because either way, I feel like it would fall into maybe like a little bit of a sticky space, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
I'd write it as a background, and if people see that and they're like, "Fuck yeah, let's do that," then it's done its job, you know? Yeah.
If you're looking for books that might be helpful with that, Spire might be a helpful book to read about how they mechanize fighting the power.
Is that the one that was preceding Heart?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I've read Heart. I haven't read Spire. I do need to look into that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you've read Heart, then maybe the quick start from Spire would be enough, and then you don't have to buy another book.
Probably, but hey, it's good. It's fine. I like having my little collection, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, that one's very much about like fighting tyranny and trying to it's not punk exactly, but it still has that as the main theme of what players are doing. And it has some mechanics that enforce that idea.
I think on the one hand, it would be cool to do that, but like the fact that I don't have any mechanics that directly enforce a stranglehold on the story in any way does allow for, I guess, more of a interesting sandbox experience. One of the things that I was planning on adding to 1.9, and I've created a couple images for already, is world maps with very defined spaces to it that have flavor text around it. So if someone was to receive this, they would be like, okay, we're going to be exploring this part of the world, and there's like a macro, middle-sized, and combat space map for that. And then it's kind of just like go wild, experience the story that, and come up with your own thing. But then again, a lot of the research I've done around that is like people rarely interact with that because it's something that they're going to have to create, and as a product that's not really value added, is it? So I might have to create a couple adventure modules that maybe focus on the idea of taking down the tyrannical power or something like that. But yeah, it's once again, it's like a absolutely titanic effort that needs to be put into that, and I'm not particularly strong writer, I don't think. So maybe I'll hire someone.
I mean, that side of it does. I feel like there's more like landmines to step on that will upset people if you phrase something correctly or leave some detail out.
Because all of the mechanical things, they kind of step around the morbidity of some of the aspects in the story, because it's referenced, but it isn't delved too deeply into it. But if it was an actual adventure module, then God, yeah, that is a kind of slippery slope. Yikes.
I mean, I don't want to turn you off of it exactly, but yeah, it is something that becomes harder to do, because people have this expectation a lot of times for like just how you word things within that kind of thing, where
true,
yeah. I mean, it gets so complicated. I'm not sure I want to get into it now, but
Well, we'll leave her for another time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's fine to just say that you make a game and people can use it this way, but plenty of people use it other ways. Like, D&D is definitely used in incorrect ways a lot of the time. So why not SNS as well?
Yeah. But I do want to try and learn the talent of making a good adventure module, because I've seen and read about the praises sung for Curse of Strahd and some of the pinnacles of adventure module design for D&D, and I think it would be a very, very valuable way to bring the world to life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just from a sort of trying to get this where it's played by more people perspective, if you provide a adventure for someone to pick up and play a new RPG with, they're more likely to play it, because then they don't have to figure out as much of the DM side.
No.
And it also provides a genre example, so they can do that first adventure and then think, oh, okay, this is a game where you do this, and then they create their own adventure that's along the same plot and genre lines as the one that you provided.
That's another problem, though, with punk suffix type experiences, because cyberpunk stories are a genre in and of themselves, right? And obviously you can have variations on that, like romance cyberpunk or tragedy cyberpunk or blah blah blah, but it is, at the end of the day, cyberpunk is a genre, so it feels like putting a little bit too much of a stamp on things, maybe, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah, I think we've hit all the questions I was curious about. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
No. As I said to Calico the first time I watched your videos, you're an excellent interviewer. I really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah,
well, always finish off by asking if you've got any DM advice for other people. So, you got anything you want to share there?
Yeah, I like the way that Brendan Mulligan does his stuff, and has really helped my ability to DM, which is just to create a bunch of little toys, essentially, and allow the players to interact with them rather than creating or trying to predict what the players are going to do. So, yeah, make a toy box and put in a bunch of weird little toys and put them in front of the player at the right moment, and that will make your stories so much better. Yeah.
I think it's called creating situations, not adventures, where
Exactly.
What will happen if the players aren't there, and then develop the rest of it after that.
Yeah, and then also prepare only one session in advance. You don't need to do 3-4 sessions, just one session. Make sure you're one session ahead of the players, because they will rarely think about it, and you'll be golden.
Yeah. I've done that. Not one session for myself, but yes.
I don't know. For me, it's works. Because if you set up the inciting action at the start of the session, then usually the rest of the session unfolds around that inciting action. So at the end of the previous session, if they killed townskeeper's wife or something, then I can be okay, so that's the inciting action, and you do all of the reactions to that at the start of the next session, and then everything will just unfold from that, and then you just take the results and you just base your reaction off of that, and I find that really works quite well. Makes it feel very interconnected and thematic. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess what I should say is usually I prepare an adventure that's maybe 5 sessions is what I expect it to play, and it's kind of sketched out.
5 sessions.
Usually I'm a little bit under. I say 5 and it ends up being 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because my players will do something unexpected, and then I adapt what I've designed for that. And that that adapting I do, yes. Like they do something, it's like, oh, okay, what does that mean for the next session? And then I'll do that for the next session. But I still have like that 5 sketch drawn out, that 5 session sketch, and then once they're done with that 5 session adventure, which ends up being 6 sessions, then I'm like, okay, what's the next thing that we're doing? And then I do another sketch.
I don't know if you're just like extremely good at predicting what your players are like going to do, or like what they're like in a situation, but for me, if I do like a session that's supposed to be 5, it could be like 2 or 20, because if you put your players in a room with a single button, they will like become super paranoid, and they'll be like, no, the button's gonna summon God and kill us all, or something like that. So it's like absolutely impossible to tell.
Yeah, I've been playing with the same group for 25 years. So
what a blessing.
It's simultaneously like I'm good at predicting what they're going to do, and I'm also good at manipulating them into doing where I think the adventure's going to go.
That's cool. Yeah.
Maybe not the best way to.
I mean, hey, if it works, it works.
Tell other
and if
people
your players
how to DM,
like it,
but
then hey.
Yeah, it's not exactly very actionable advice for most people. Like, know your players well enough that you can manipulate them into making the choices where you don't have to improvise very much. Okay, I'm playing with strangers. That's not helpful advice.
I don't know. For me, like, I absolutely do love my players to bits, especially the long time ones who are like super reliable. But I always love interacting with new people, because they bring some like a level of craziness, like unpredictability that I like. Here's the best piece of advice: study and just do improv classes. You'll become a god at TTRPGs.
Yeah. I'd also add on to that, just like reading a lot can also be super helpful, because the more you know about things, the easier it is to improv based around them.
Yeah. Although I guess it depends on what you're, because if you're running a TTRPG that's based in some super well cemented things, like D&D, obviously, if you've read a bunch of fantasy like Tolkien, all the other stuff like that, that's going to be amazing for you. Something a little bit, yeah.
A simpler example: if you're running Pendragon, the King Arthur TTRPG, you should read a lot of King Arthur folktales and fairy tales and novels and stories, and then you'll have a really good background for what it's supposed to be like, and you can run that game much easier.
That's another reason why I wish there was more Biopunk media out there, so there's more examples of what to draw from. Yeah. But yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. This was a really fun interview. Really enjoyable.
Yeah. Thank you much for coming on the show. And before we sign off, why don't you tell people where they can go to get SNS?
You can go get the game on itch.io or DriveThruRPG. It is free everywhere. There is also a in progress. I think most of the bugs have been ironed out at this point, but there is an in progress version of SNS for Steam as a digital access app where you can boot up your character sheet on Steam and have it like all editable and stuff. Yeah. And I think that's everywhere. Yeah.
Why Steam compared to like a virtual tabletop?
It's not a VTT. I have to say for Steam, it's a character sheet holder basically.
Okay.
So you pop open your character sheet. You can save it as I think, JSON file and send it to other people if you want to. So you can send it to your storyteller as a little JSON file, and then it also has like an inbuilt dice roller and stuff like that. But I do want to do it VTT. Absolutely, one of the plans to be programmed eventually when I get around to it.
Okay, so Steam is just an easy way of distributing that app to people.
it's just I don't really play with people IRL. I want to make a version for what is going to be the best way to play SNS, and in my opinion, that would be online using the Steam app, because then all of this like bells and whistles will be in there. But that being said, it is completely and utterly playable in real life, and whatever works for you.
Yeah, I'd say there isn't a game I can think of where, oh yeah, you can play it online, but you can't play it in person.
Well, you'd be surprised. I think in the TTRPG server that you're in with me, there's a couple people who are making online-only TTRPGs, because they're like, it's the future of TTRPGs. At least that's the main reason they've all given me when I was asking, like, why don't you make a playable version for it? They also said a lot of things about like math being allowed to be more complicated. Like you can add in a lot of like math stuff, like algorithms and using percentages and stuff like that, which I guess makes sense if you're using a digital RPG.
Yeah.
You know?
It'll take the mental load, and you don't have to have a player that knows how to do all of that.
I don't know, should I believe it's the future of TTRPGs, but I wish them the best of luck. This sounds interesting, certainly. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Seiya. This was really cool learning about the game, and but there'll be links to it in the episode description, and go check it out.
Absolutely will do. And can I share this on like my own social media and stuff like that? Is that right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can.
Sweet. Well, yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Cheers.
That was Seiya telling us about his game and setting, Synesthesia Synthetica, Biopunk. Very cool stuff. Very visually different and more exciting than some other games for science fiction, I think, because it's much more different than what we experience in our day-to-day life. So if you are interested in that, there's links in the episode description for Itch, the Drive-Thru RPG, and the Synesthesia Synthetica Discord. And check it out to learn more. This episode is coming out in May of 2026, when the Crit Award nominations are open for anyone to nominate something. So there's also a link for that in the episode description. So nominate any of your favorite TTRPG creators, maybe some of the past guests, maybe me, if you feel like it, or maybe yourself, or a friend, or whatever your favorite is. Go ahead and put that up there. It's for independent creators, so don't nominate your big D&D products, but like the smaller ones are good. And podcasts, all that sort of stuff. And as always, I want to thank our Patreon supporter, Darren. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone else for listening. Bye.